Steven Espinosa. Everybody knows who you are by now. My phone, I got 10 phone calls last night. How many phone calls you get last night?
Got a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, calls to the work number, calls to the home number. Everybody wants to know what's going on.
Did you know?
I did know. I don't know the full details, but Floyd hinted it. He teased at it a while ago. He said very specifically, I will be back in Tokyo for a big boxing event before the end of the year. Now, he's very calculated in the way he says things. So when I heard that, I said, well, everyone assumes he's going to do a big fight there. I thought maybe it's a fight, maybe it's an appearance, maybe it's a promotion. I wasn't thinking that it would be your run-of-the-mill boxing match, and it clearly isn't. So I've talked to the promoters. They're looking for U.S. distribution. A lot of the details are still undetermined. They're still, the way I hear,
you're the only horse in the race, though.
Well, for the most part. I mean, look, it's interesting. Look, I think we'll see. The time isn't exactly sure. With Tokyo, there's a time difference in pay-per-view. It could be challenging. So I think, first of all, we need to figure out what the event itself is, what time it is, and all of that. But this is what Floyd is great at. He announces things in a way that is calculated to get people talking and speculating. Never get the full story up front. That's too simple. That's too straightforward. That doesn't generate discussion. So we're all going to be sort of twisting in the wind for a while, wondering what's going on. Us at Showtime included. But that's part of the genius for how he generates conversation and ultimately big business around his events.
Moving forward, what's the schedule looking like for Showtime after December 1st?
So, there's been a lot of rumors over a couple of pay-per-view fights. Those aren't completely done, but I think we'll see those come together with some luck.
Them meaning, so the fans know, Pacquiao, Broner,
and Spence versus Mikey. And I think we're going through this a little bit of period. We're going to reset. We've had a run of 2 really good years, and we've got some things that are still remaining to be done. I keep telling you we're looking toward unification. We still need to unify at welterweight, still need to try and get unification at featherweight. So I think we're a couple fights away. We need to get Keith Thurman back in the mix. I know Sean Porter has sort of stepped to the head of the line getting a big fight. And I think those things will be coming back. Keith needs a comeback fight. Whether it's Leo Santa Cruz and Frampton, or Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell, whether it's Abner Mares and Tank. I mean, those are all conversations that we're having. I can't promise any of those yet, but I think those are all very realistic. Those are all things that are being discussed. And probably one of the ones that we're all, I think, most interested in is Charlo versus Hurd. And that one
is that pretty much set?
It's not set, but
assuming both people win,
right. We need to get Hurd will very likely be back on the pay-per-view, and I think we probably would have seen it at the end of this year if not for the injury to Hurd. But he'll test out the shoulder, and Charlo's having a fight obviously December 22nd, and I think we could see that in the first part of next year. I think. And that might be the one on my radar that maybe I'm sort of most excited about, just because that one's going to be explosive. It'll be explosive between the two guys, out of the ring, in the ring. That's going to be a real heated rivalry.
And you could bring in the Redskins and the Cowboys, just blow the thing out the water.
Yeah, you're absolutely. You saw, Jared Hurd was out with the Redskins just, earlier today, and he's quietly become one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. I mean, what you are getting with Jared Hurd. He's coming straight ahead, and he's going to wear you down and stop you. I'm confident that's what we'll see on the Wilder pay-per-view, and I know that's his strategy for Charlo fight too.
There's been a mixed reviews on the pay-per-view. What goes into the pay-per-view, and where did you start at? And now that we pretty much have it set per se, where did it go good? Where did it go left? Where did it go right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. It's a good question. One of the the biggest challenges with pay-per-view undercard is budget, because pay-per-views are funded by the fighters. Essentially, if they sell a bunch of pay-per-views, fighters get good money. If they don't sell a lot of pay-per-views, then their money isn't good. But the expenses come out of the pot. So if you're a fighter, you're looking and saying, okay, I've got an interest in this. I don't want an $8 million undercard, because that's $8 million less that there is in the pot for me and the other fighter to split. So you have to be strategic. You obviously want undercards that are going to build buys and leave fans happy. But the kind of thing that was being rumored, Tank versus Abner, Leo versus Gary, that would be the most expensive pay-per-view undercard of all time. And it might add some buys, it might not, but it wouldn't be financially viable. So, you look at who's available in the time period, and their budget. The other promoter has a say, the other fighter has a say. And what I do like in this particular fight is, I like seeing some logic to the fight card. And here, you look at it and you see a theme. Wilder, Hurd, Ortiz, Joe Joyce. They're all action guys, knockout guys, pure excitement. So I know, there's been some criticism on the opponents. And look, let's go one by one. I think Joe Hanks, for a Joe Joyce fighter at his stage of career, I think that's entirely
So Gerald Washington is done. That didn't work out.
I'm assuming it's Hanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hanks. But either one, I think, at his level, yes, he's an accomplished amateur fighter, but he's still young.
Sure.
I don't have any problem with that. Travis Kaufman, look, we know the heavyweight division isn't that deep. There's a good 5 or 6 names, and then it falls off. Having said that, Kaufman is an experienced guy, and who knows? And Jarrett Hurd, look, we had a lot of conversations about this, and the reality is he wasn't going to fight a killer in the sense of like the Charlo. He's coming off of shoulder surgery. So I think all of these are credible fights. I think they are realistic in terms of the pay-per-view world, and I think there's value here. This is not a pay-per-view undercard of who's that, with opponents. This is guys that you've got a world titleist there, you've got one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world there, you've got an accomplished amateur, maybe one of the future stars of the heavyweight division. So I think just on the televised undercard, you've got a good selection, and there's reasons to pay attention to every fight on the card.
Who's Rigo fighting?
Good question. He's, with Rigo, there's always been a challenge of getting opponents, and there's always been a challenge with keeping him active, both for promotional reasons and a variety of different reasons. So I'm not actually sure. It's tough to get
Okay.
it's tough to get him opponents, but once you get him back active again, he's still one of the most accomplished guys in the sport.
If not 2 gold medals, yeah, come on, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think getting him back. People always, I think, tend to forget about him. I think he can still cause a lot of damage at 122 or even 126.
Now let's change subjects real quick. If Canelo's contract with the Zone, just for clarification for the fans, if there's not much money in the pot, is in your greatest guesstimation, is that 365 the potential of or is it a particular guarantee in your greatest guesstimate? How does that work?
My understanding, it is a combination of guarantees and incentives for subscription. So it's not so clear as to saying he's going to get $35 million a fight or $33 million. Obviously this fight on December 15th, the purse is less than half of that. But down the line, the purses are higher, and a lot of this, like that entire, quote unquote $1 billion things, it's contingent upon subscriptions. So it's sort of like, okay, that's fine. If you get 2 million subscribers, then there's money for everybody. Everybody gets paid. Well, if you don't, it's not a $365 million fee.
Sure, gotcha.
So having said that, it's still a lucrative deal. It's a deal that made sense for Canelo and Canelo's job.
Just 11 fights seems a long time to keep the company happy. You understand what I'm saying? With a sport like boxing.
Well, I think that was more for PR than anything else. It's a good press release, and we know how competitive these guys are. It needed to be a little bit more than the money that Floyd signed for in order for them to say it's the biggest deal ever. Now, the reality is Floyd got as much money, actually more money in a shorter amount of time. So, I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal ever, but I think that was the goal of saying it's an 11-fight deal, so you can get it up to a point where you could at least claim for a PR release. I mean, that's different. We never put a number on Floyd's deal, and I wouldn't have put a number if I had a 200 million, 800, 500 million. I wouldn't put it out there, and I wouldn't put out the specifics of a deal. And there's going to be a lot of speculation. It's just, I think anytime you see people saying it's 11 fights, 365, you should question it because it's there for PR purposes.
And the scheduling is getting real crowded. We got a bunch of fractions, and when is Showtime dropping their schedule for the spring and early next year?
Yeah, right now it looks pay-per-view heavy because pay-per-views, you need a longer lead time for all of this. And we're in this period where, I've got a sense of what we have January, February, March, but like we did last year, I'd rather hold it and do a release where we can sort of lay out 4, 5, 6 months. So I think, we'll get closer to the end of the year and then be able to sort of lay out the first, hopefully 5 or 6 months of the plan. But there'll be plenty of stuff. I mean, I know there's been some criticism about pay-per-views and pay-per-views heavy. Look, we've had one pay-per-view in the last 3 years. We've made a conscious effort not to go that route unless absolutely necessary. And I think when there's a premium event, I don't think there's a lot of negativity from fans about paying a premium price. The negativity comes when you're giving me a non-premium event at a premium price.
Gotcha.
You want filet mignon, you pay filet mignon prices. You don't expect, filet mignon at the price of ground beef.
Appreciate it. I'm done. I know you've been doing interviews all day, and you got more to come.
That's all right.
Appreciate you, Steve.
All right, man.